Good evening, Sharks fans. No, I am not Puck Guy 14. I am Chris JWS, and I'm joined tonight by Eric Landy and Ian Reed. We're the fill-in crew tonight. AJ is off DJing, and Eric is off doing Eric things. We get the privilege of doing the first show for a Sharks loss this season. Good run while it lasted, but all good things come to an end. Sharks lose 6-3. A little bit of a rocky game. Last minute, we had Paul Martin. I get my Martins mixed up. We had Paul Martin out, and then we had Martin Jones taking his first night off this season. Good evening, guys. So, start with Eric. What are your thoughts on the game?
Well, I'd also like to make a shout out. So if anybody'd like to join in with us, you can always tweet us at the hashtag here. We've got also the Pucknology Twitter handle as well. So tweet out any one of us, and we'll get the message, and you can call in, basically, Twitter in. So kind of going back over the game, Stalock looked rusty. I think we've come to expect him to play the puck quite a bit. His puck handling skills were okay, but his overall goaltending just was a little sloppy.
Thank you. Ian, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat as Landy here. I thought that Stalock, watching Martin Jones play and the difference, the contrast in styles between Jones and Stalock, it's just night and day. Jones is really calm. He kind of just waits for he waits for the shot. He reacts. He doesn't really overly play anything. Where Stalock's a lot more aggressive. Sometimes he likes to overplay a shot, which I thought he was guilty of a couple times tonight. And I think it bit him a couple times, and there were some shots where he just didn't have a chance on, and it wasn't like the team was especially fantastic in front of him, but definitely that contrast was definitely evident tonight.
Yeah, I'm in agreement definitely on Stalock. There was at least 2 goals there I thought were largely on him, maybe 3 depending on how you want to count it. A lot of the blame also I thought to me went to the Burns pairing and the forwards on the ice. There seemed to be a lot of miscommunication, some sloppy play there, and that led directly to at least 1 goal. I mean, I don't blame him at all for that goal that was in the slot where he literally if he had gotten that, I mean, who is he? Martin Jones. I mean, yeah. So I don't blame him for that one. So it was a team breakdown overall, but I agree it was a big contrast between what we've been seeing in goal and what we saw tonight. I hope it's just rust and he kind of shakes it off and gets back into his groove. But he's looking like a guy that, looks like a backup. He's not looking like a starter like he was a lot last season. Okay, well, moving on. Let's talk about Martin Jones. Paul Martin.
Paul Martin.
So he was a last-minute scratch. I still haven't heard any more information other than lower body injury. Do you guys think that was a big impact on this game? That last-minute scratch right there. Start with you, Ian.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that last year we watched Burns be paired up with different defensemen, and we saw the Brent Burns Dillon pairing last year, and it wasn't good, and tonight wasn't good. Paul Martin's been that real big solution for Burns, because when Burns pinches, he's been very quietly able to go and just cover up on the back end, and Dillon's just not that guy.
No, I think as I was kind of tweeting out during the game, whoever thought of the Dillon Burns pair just was not looking at any footage last year. It was a tire fire, to say the least.
It wasn't as bad as like Burns and Hannon, but yeah, it was pretty bad last year. Although I don't know if there's really any guy in this roster aside from Paul Martin that's shown they're an effective pairing with him. I mean, we even put Vlasic with him a few times last year, and Vlasic wasn't able to be that solution. Martin just seems to have that right feel to work with him, or maybe it's just the small sample size we haven't seen him get burned yet much by it. But,
I think that Chris Letang is very much like Brent Burns, and maybe maybe even a little bit more of a freestyler than Burns is. So, Paul Martin has definitely experience with a wild stallion back there.
Yeah, I mean, may give Doug Wilson some credit here. He found the right guy to pair with Burns' wild man there. Were you gonna say something, Ian?
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement. I think that really, who else could you put him with? I mean, other than Vlasic, but then I think that Braun hasn't been overly successful without Vlasic. So if you split that pairing up, it's a lose-lose.
Yeah,
in my
it's
opinion.
tough. Yeah, he's already shown to be a pretty big important part. 'Cause, I mean, the defense hasn't been perfect for the first bunch of games, but they've been considerably better than they were last year. Last year, it just felt like every other every other shift felt like there was something going wrong back there. Yeah, so let's move on back to Staylock. Let's no need to bag on him too much, but there was that controversial call on the no goal there. So I believe Ian did a little research into this. You want to show that what's going on there?
Yeah, let me throw up the graphic real quick while Ian's kind of going on.
Yeah. So basically, what the rule says. Let me just grab it here quick, so I have it here as well. Anyway, basically, the gist of the rule is that when the opposing the player loses his helmet, especially in a situation where it looks like he kind of knocked it off his helmet. Well, what happened there? I think if I wish we could show the video, but what happened there was that shot that deflected off his mask actually undid one of his latches. So he was already missing his strap on the back, so his helmet was already loose, which is why he kind of flung it down. And then, so basically what happens is the rule says that if there is a scoring play and they're in possession of the puck, that they don't have to blow it dead right away. If the Sharks had possession, then the play would have been blown dead. But because there was a scoring chance imminent, they let the play go on. And by the word of the law, it's the right call.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't sure at first when I first saw that, but yeah, somebody else tweeted. I think it was Bleeding Teal. It might have been someone else, but I think it was Bleeding Teal. Tweeted that out. Good call on that one. I think here's my thoughts on it. Even before I knew the legality of it, I felt like Staylock should have kept playing. Like unless if his mask had been knocked completely off, then I think it would have been much more justified to stop. But it's a strap. I know it's not a good thing, but you got to finish the play, and especially given that rule that says if they have the puck and there's an imminent chance to score, that the play is not over. So he kind of treated it like it was over, trying to get it off, and that just seemed to me that stunk very much of an inexperienced goalie right there, not knowing what to do and trying to get it off when he should have been focusing at least until there's a clear, then let the refs know, hey, I got a problem here.
Yeah, no, I think that really was the turning point of the game. It just seemed like the Sharks kind of lost focus after that. So yeah, it sucks and it happens. But the thing is, it's just that he really just kind of quit on it right after he pulled it off, and yeah, he did reach for his strap beforehand. And he looked like he was either in pain or had something stuck or trying to get that off real quick. But it wasn't the right play to make there. And even if he had his helmet come off, the scoring chance, the immediate scoring chance is still allowed. So he's got to know that.
Yeah, I mean it could even come clean off, but basically by what the rule says, it could have come clean off. He wouldn't even had to do that whole thing. It would have still been a live play at least for another 5 or 10 seconds.
Yeah. And that's just it too. And to me, it seems like it's kind of like a dated rule. Like I'd like to see them update this because that's still a dangerous play. I mean, that puck comes out front and somebody rifles it into Staylock's face. I mean, that's scary stuff. What I would like to see them do is in that situation where Staylock clearly knocked off his own bucket, regardless of strap, call it, blow the play dead for safety, but then 2-minute delay of game penalty or something.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree with you. I think the way it was, I don't think the play should be blown dead immediately because he was not in imminent danger. But
no.
I think I'm of the opinion once the mask is off, it doesn't matter how the play should be instantly dead. Although, I mean, I know there's a danger of someone trying to knock it off right when something's about to happen. But I would, I don't know. It'd have to be touched on. But I don't think it's going to be nearly relevant enough of an issue for them to even relook at that in the offseason like that. There would have to be an epidemic of this. I mean, I think the rule I think is probably mostly fine for what it is. I would think though, if the helmet comes clean off, it probably should be blown dead more often than not because that is dangerous.
I think I think that is the way that the rule is, and I think the spirit of the rule is that as long as as long as there's not an imminent scoring play happening, the play just goes dead, and I think that's how the refs are kind of treating it, and I think that it was by the letter of the law. It was played the way it was supposed to be played.
Yeah, silly Staylock needs to pull the old Jonathan Quick and like, come on, bump off the peg. Come on.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay, that's off. That's off, guys. Play over.
Yeah. No, he definitely
dump the helmet and the net.
Yeah.
Rip it off and bump the net off.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like I said, he looked rusty. And to be honest, I don't know that he's even a good backup because it seems like he's a kind of guy that needs to have regular work to really thrive. He wasn't like Grice, where Grice could come in for, a spot start here or there and be competent. Right. It seems like Staylock needs to get into a groove, and when he's in a groove, he's good. But when he's kind of just called upon out of the blue,
he's cold.
Yeah, he's kind of cold.
It's actually a pretty good point. I know that was one of the things AJ repeated a lot last year was, he's not very good because he's not getting regular work. But I know they always say, like in the NFL, the best backups are not necessarily the best quarterbacks, but they're the best guys who can step in in an emergency and know the game plan and not maybe they're not as talented as the starter, but they can at least try and keep executing the game plan. Whether they're good at it or not is a different question, but at least they are able to step in and give it what they can. Yeah, it might seem like maybe he is the kind of guy who needs to be more in a 50-50 kind of tandem. I mean, the best we've seen from him is when he's played a lot.
Yep.
Yeah. No, definitely.
What are your thoughts, Ian?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we need to see Staylock get more action this year, period, because Martin Jones has never played, he hasn't even played a half season, let alone a full one, as a starting goaltender yet. So I think that asking him to make that jump, I just can't see how much gas you'll have in the tank at the come playoffs if that's where we end up being.
So I don't see another back-to-back on our schedule until November 13th and 14th. Do we think we see him again until then? I would think so, but what are your thoughts given his performance?
I'd take a look at the schedule, see if there's any kind of weak opponent. I mean, there's no weak games in the NHL. We're kidding ourselves if we think that there's a weak team we can put him against, but maybe an offensively challenged kind of team. But I mean, I don't even know if we want to be messing around with that right now because defensively they're a liability. They're a liability with the injuries that they have right now, and they can't cover up for shoddy goaltending. This is the time right now where the goaltending has to really bail out the injuries, and really bail out the lack of defensive discipline.
So are you thinking like we probably won't see him again until
that back-to-back, yeah.
We have that back-to-back, or until we see Paul Martin back in the lineup? Because I think if we have Paul Martin back in the lineup, I think his chances are much better at being able to succeed. But I question if with a weak defensive core. I mean, we've seen him behind a weak defensive core many times, and he's not the guy who's going to pull magic and bail them out. Martin Jones, maybe he is. I mean, he does. He has seemed to have that touch the last couple games.
Yeah, he's been something else. Just unreal, actually.
Yeah. No, and I don't think that this team works well with a squirrely goaltender in the back. I mean, I don't know how many teams do, but they don't have the defensive depth to overcome squirrely goaltending. They really don't. I mean, we saw this with Niemi. We saw this with Niittymaki. We saw this with any other full butterfly kind of goalie who loves to shift back and forth. They don't play well in front of that. They played well with Nabokov, but he was still kind of what you consider a hybrid. You know,
Yeah.
he'd be a stand-up when he'd have to be, and he'd be a butterfly when he'd have to be. And so I don't think that the defensive core is good enough to bolster a start by Stalock again. Not until he has to go in, which is that back-to-back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I tend to agree. So let's switch gears. Let's go to something a little more positive because half this game.
Can I just hit something quick?
Sure.
There's been something, just something I want to run about you guys because there's been a lot of comments about how would you guys have switched the starts around? Would you have started Stalock against the weaker Devils team and had Jones in net for the Islanders game? Because there's been a lot of talk about that, and I'm kind of indifferent to it. I thought that. I don't know. I think with Stalock in net, maybe we're down 2 games. Maybe we're 3-2 instead of 4-1. But
no, I think that I'm with you. It doesn't really matter. They had 32 shots on goal last night because the defense started to sag, and they had 34 shots on goal today. And of course, the caliber of those shots are going to be different between the two teams. But the Devils definitely put some rubber on the net at the end of the game.
Yeah.
So I think it would have saw Stalock leak like a sieve anyways.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Plus, I think it's usually is like you have your starter first night, and especially with the way Martin Jones was rolling at that point.
Right.
He was coming off 2 shutouts. Like, I'm not a big proponent of the ride the hot hand generally because I think it's fallacious. But in that case, I would say yes, by all means, because there's no reason not to start him at that point. So
yeah, no, I agree.
He's in the zone, he's playing well. Get him out there while he's still playing well, and then give him a night off the next night. So
yeah, I agree.
So let's do some positives here. Let's not all be all negatives. I mean, this is early in the season. We can save the extreme negativity for late in the season when
we're not burning it down yet.
If we see these same problems we saw tonight exhibit themselves over and over again. But what were some of the things you liked tonight? We'll start with Eric.
Yeah, no, you saw Goldobin get his first goal, and that's always cool to see. You saw Ward really find some chemistry with Nieto, which I thought was interesting. You saw Tennyson play a pretty good game. He wasn't lights out, but he also ended the night even. Plus minus, and he's an even, so that's pretty good. DeMello also didn't look too bad. There were a couple reads that I thought he could play a little differently, but for the most part was pretty competent. So I think that there were some good things. I think I think we saw Pavelski be pretty resilient too. So yeah, I think there was a handful of good things, but it's a downer. It's the first loss, and you kind of want them to go 82-0, and it's not going to happen. But the first one's always kind of the toughest pill to swallow, and then we kind of move on.
Yep, Ian.
Yeah, there's a lot of. I thought that this game tonight, I thought was a lot more enjoyable to watch than the game last night. And I found last night the Sharks kind of really just went back on their heels, and I didn't really find the Sharks really went back on their heels so much. That I felt the play kind of went back and forth a lot. They just didn't get the saves that Halak gave the Islanders for the most part. So I thought that was a positive thing of being on the second night of a back-to-back, and I thought that they didn't look tired. I didn't find.
No, they started out great. Started out with a lot of more jump than I actually thought they would. And going into this road trip, we said, hey, look, if they can come out 3-1, if they can come out 3 or 2-0-1, 2-1-1, and collect some points and either split or get an extra point out of it. Then that was going to be good. So, as long as they take care of the business against the Rangers, I'd say the whole trip is a net positive for me.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. And they have one more game on the road. So yeah, if they come out of this at least with they already have 2 wins in the bank. If they can get a third one or at least an OTL, then I would say it's a positive road trip. It could be better. For me, I saw a lot of positives. I really liked what I saw from Nieto.
Yes.
The patience he had on that 2-on-1, that was almost Thornton-like patience. Like I was thinking, oh, he's gonna shoot, and then he just waits just long enough, gets it right around the guy, and gorgeous passes. Like, and
Yeah, no,
so
the
Thornton
deke.
also,
Yeah, no,
thing.
the deke was awesome on the goalie. He totally bit on him going to his forehand to try and jack it up to the roof, and then he just kind of like, oh nope, I'm passing it. So
Yeah, that was a patience play. He almost ran out of space. So that was pretty well done. Thornton, same thing to set up Goldobin's first goal. Yeah, I liked a lot of what I saw. Also, Dylan got his first points of the year. I was looking before the game. Only a couple guys had not scored at least a point who had played in all 4 games. Braun, Dylan, Tennyson. Oh, sorry, it was Braun who got that point. I meant to say. Yeah, Dylan and Tennyson, unless I didn't see it, did not score tonight. So those are the only guys who still are pointless. Oh, no, sorry, I don't mean it that way. Even Mike Brown, who is in fact pointless, has a point. Yeah, sorry, okay.
Oh, I thought that this kind of a good jumping point into one thing that I've been seeing on Twitter is the hate for Nieto, and I mean even we've kind of discussed it in our goings on.
Yeah.
I think he could have used an extra year in the CUDA. I think I've been on record as saying that before. I think that the kid definitely has the ability. I think we have seen it. It's his finish that I do not like. I don't think it's up to snuff yet. But what kills me is you see all this hate on Twitter for Nieto, and people don't realize how young he is.
That's right. It's funny because like when you see the hate and stuff, and then it's the same thing that we say. Everyone like even like AJ says this all the time. He's got all the wheels but none of the hands. But then he does what he did tonight, and then you're like, okay, well maybe there's some hands there. It just needs to be refined.
Well, and I don't think necessarily he's ever going to be like a first-line player, but I think he can be like one of those swing second, third-line guys, and we need those guys. Like we need Joel Wards and guys like that who can kind of be either be in the bottom 6, top 6, depending on what your need is. And he definitely he makes, even if he's not the best finisher, I think he's good at creating problems for the other team. When he shoots up the ice and starts pushing the defense back. His speed can be problematic. I mean, apparently Marlowe's still the fastest guy on the team after last night, though. Holy crap. The way he just blew by those guys. I was like, wait, that's Marlowe.
That's Marlowe of old, I know.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, I remember that Marlowe who used to just, like, you give him an inch and he would just be gone.
Yeah, it's kind of funny we talk about Marlowe. He had about 18 minutes on the ice tonight, and he's a -4, but he didn't look bad. I didn't think that it was indicative of his play.
No.
And I think he gained most of those minuses late in the game when, I think they were doing good for about 2 periods there, and then the wheels just kind of came off towards the end there, and at that point, yeah. Especially in a back-to-back situation, where things start to unravel late in the end of a back-to-back, it's pretty hard to stop that.
And the issue I have with the second line right now is I like how it plays, but the problem is Hurdle seems to, like, since he's moved up to the second line, he's getting eaten in the dot. Absolutely eaten.
Yeah. No, the face-offs were not good tonight.
In general, yeah. I haven't looked at the final numbers for each player. I know we were like 28-37 on face-offs, so we lost that battle overall. I know after 2 periods, Thornton was something like 2-9. Hurdle was something like 1-5.
I have the percentages. Hurdle was 33% in the dot. Thornton was 29, which is incredibly uncharacteristic of Thornton. And that's the second game in a row Thornton's been bad in the dot, too. I'm not sure what's going on there. I don't know if it's the way that they changed the rules, or I'm not sure.
I don't think that should have too much effect, because I like the rule change there. I don't know. I don't think it's been discussed on here. But the only rule, maybe there's more rule changes to it than I know. But my understanding, the only difference is now the defensive zone player can put their stick down first, as opposed to the home or away play, or the home player being allowed to, right? Yeah, I mean that makes way more sense to me. It shouldn't be contingent on if you're home or away. It makes more sense to do a contingent on zone. That, at least in my opinion. I don't see how that would affect Thornton's ability to play better in faceoffs. I mean, though he does take a lot of offensive zone faceoffs, so
Right.
maybe that's a little bit of it. But also, I looked at the numbers before the game. We were at 53% as a team, number 8 in the NHL. They were at 55% as a team, number 1 in the NHL. So it's not like we didn't just go up against a bad faceoff team. Those are the ones that really upset me. When I see the Sharks perform badly against a team that is terrible in faceoffs, I've seen them before do that. Like with teams like that are like last near the end of the league, and they just
Like in
have a horrible
Arizona.
night. Yeah, like at least this was a quality opponent in that regard, so they didn't just do it against a bad team.
Yeah, no, and I think the score doesn't indicate how close it was either. I think that you had the empty netter, of course. So if you take that away, it was a 3-5 game. If you take out the goal previous to the empty net, where you had the defense kind of pinching in and activating a little bit more, so with a little bit more reckless abandon, you're talking about a 3-4 game against a good team, a team that had just won twice. Coming back even against Nashville. So it was definitely a quality opponent, and it definitely showed the lack of depth. It really brought it to light on the forefront.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of quality teams, so this leaves Montreal as the only undefeated team because they won over Detroit tonight. The Wild lost last night, so they had dropped out just before us. So we were one of the only 2 undefeated teams going into the night. Yeah, it happens. At least, at least it's on a back-to-back on the road against quality opponent. I can't complain too much about that. It'll happen.
Yeah, exactly. You can't. No one's going 82-0. I mean, that's just the reality of it.
What are you talking about?
Well, I mean, Montreal, their hopes are still alive, I guess.
If they ever go 80, if they ever to be vying for 82-0, I'd expect to see those like long beards. Remember those commercials years ago, where like the Flyers or whatever were like 72-0 or something. They had the beards down to their chest. Anyway, was that for fantasy hockey or what was that for?
I don't remember. I remember what you're talking about. I just don't know exactly what it was for.
Yeah, I vaguely remember. I'm sure one of our researchers on Twitter will look that up right now for us. Looking at you, Gen X.
Yeah. No, and then the other thing that really was not good were the penalties again.
Yeah, it was something. Slushy Jake brought that up too on Twitter.
Yeah. That was kind of where I was going with that. It just was not. They were not disciplined at all. I mean, they didn't take that many, but they were undisciplined penalties is what they took.
Burns has taken some really dumb ones, I find, too. Like, of people taking dumb penalties, Burns seems to be leading the way for dumb penalties of late. And I like Burns, and I'm not trying to, take a dump on him, but...
Well, tonight... Yeah, I mean, you saw everybody after he got paired up with Martin. You saw, oh my gosh, well, now he looks like a defenseman. Now he's, solid back there. But if you saw tonight, this is the reason why a lot of us had clamored for him to be a forward, because he's just a mess in his own zone when he doesn't have a rock back there.
Yeah, it reiterates what we already said once, but Paul Martin is quickly making himself a very important part of this team. Like, if you weren't convinced before, I mean, it's one game, but you saw a lot of the Burnsy we saw last year, and that was, I mean, because the first several games I've been watching closely, because, I mean, I love Burns, but I do bag on him a lot for that, and rightfully so. But the first several games, I didn't see a lot of those really bad Burns moments. I saw a few of them, and Martin cleaned up very effectively for them.
Yeah, and I just took a look on CSN. It looks like Peter DeBoer says he's got a lower body injury. Doesn't know much more than that. He says he doesn't think it's serious, but Donskoy wasn't supposed to be serious either. And now this is his second game out.
And Melker Carlson wasn't supposed to be serious.
Exactly.
He still hasn't skated.
He still hasn't skated, exactly. So that's kind of scary, because if you lose Martin for any extended period, and when I say extended, I'm talking like 2 to 3 games extended. This defense is not good at all. No,
it is ugly.
I mean, even with DeMello, I think that he's still not. he's just not ready for a pairing with
No,
Burns.
no, and even with Dylan, like if he comes back in and you just put DeMello with Dylan per se, and you sit Tennyson, that still doesn't. Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah, yeah. No, I really I criticize DeBoer on this one. I think that if anything, you have to break up Vlasic Braun and put Vlasic with Burns, because even though Vlasic didn't have any kind of chemistry, at least he's more solid than Dylan, who I think is such a liability right now. For being touted as a defensive defenseman, he does make some really stupid pinches, does make some pretty bad decisions, bad reads, and you can't pair that with Burns. You just
Nope.
can't.
Yeah, no, Burns needs someone who's going to not make mistakes and be able to clean up mistakes very effectively.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess I would assume we're going to find out probably tomorrow more about Martin's prognosis. Just let's hope it's good, because with
Yeah, we need to
with Couture already out, we can't really afford to lose another important body. On the subject of depth, what did you guys think of the fourth line tonight? I mean, I have thoughts, but I'd like to hear yours.
Yeah, Ian, do you have any?
It was okay. I mean, it wasn't. Again, this kind of goes back to like you had Chris Tierney down there. We were kind of spoiled by that because Chris Tierney should not be a fourth line center in this league, and so we kind of got spoiled by having Chris Tierney down there. I think that they've been serviceable, but I think that Chris Tierney being off that line exposes Brown for the player that he actually is, and so it makes it hard. I don't have an issue with Gaudreau being on that line, but I might, if I'm the Sharks, and I might scratch Brown and maybe call up one of the guys from the CUDA.
Either Lurg or Haley.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too.
Yeah, because right now, I mean, as it stands, Gaudreau had 10 minutes of ice time. Brown had 10 minutes of ice time. Smith had 4 minutes of ice time. He had that puck that went up to his ear.
Yeah.
I
hope he's fine from that.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at the numbers on the fourth line, and I was kind of keeping an eye on them throughout, because early in the game, Baker had said this is considered to be one of the best fourth lines in the league, not the Sharks, but the Islanders. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure exactly why or how they are considered that. That would be, I didn't have time to look up exactly like what it was, but based on the possession numbers, they got eaten alive, because Brown -7 in shot attempts, Gaudreau -6. Smith is only -3, but as you said, he played half as many minutes. So generally, they were giving up 2 shots for every 1 shot that they were getting. So they were not doing well in the possession battle. And hopefully, once things realign and Tierney's back down there, that'll get a little better. I would not mind seeing some call-ups, because you know how much I love Mike Brown, my favorite player who managed to score a goal somehow. I'm still I know how, because
Chris Tierney did all the work.
Tierney Nation right here.
Yeah. Well, so you have Clutterbuck on their fourth line, you have Cizikas on their fourth line, and you have Matt Martin on their fourth line. So that's a pretty good fourth line.
That could be a third line on some teams.
Yeah, definitely, especially Cal Clutterbuck. I mean, he's known as a hitter, but he does have some offensive skill, and really does kind of play that wrecking ball kind of game. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I just that fourth line just was not able to go. And it's going to be interesting to see how they play against New York, the Rangers, because we think the Islanders are good. The Rangers, man, they'll like I said yesterday, if the Sharks took that kind of effort into Jersey, they were going to get beat pretty bad by New York and the Islanders, and we saw it tonight. I mean, they got beat, and then you go to New York, the Rangers, and boy, it's 6-3 tonight. You might be talking like a 7-2 kind of game,
Yeah, I mean, also when you're talking like possession, how the different lines do. On the bright side, the upper lines did do decently well against Tavares. At least in possession numbers, he was kind of 50-50, which is a win against a player that caliber.
Yep.
I know Hurdle had that one face-off that led to a goal, which I don't really blame Stalock on that one. That was a rocket. And yeah, I think that's where Hurdle has to do a better job on face-offs, as you already touched on. He's definitely struggled on the dot, and going up against Tavares, who is he is a rock star. So
he's drawing opponents that they're out of, he looks like he's going to be a great center like going forward. He's probably a better center than he is a wing, but right now with the opponents he's drawing, he's not ready for them yet.
No, I think it's time to break up the Pavelski Jumbo pairing. As much as I love that duo, I think it's time to exploit Pavelski's center ability, and have him center that second line with Marleau and Ward, and then have Hurdle up with either Donskoy or Goldobin with Jumbo, because we know Jumbo can take care of a line, by himself. And we know that Pavelski, is a pretty good finisher, and you've got Ward and Marleau who aren't too puck hungry, who can feed him the puck. So, I think that should be the way to go.
We just need guys. Sorry, go ahead.
I tend to agree. It's actually an interesting thought. That had not occurred to me, but yeah, part of it I think is because Hurdle's now drawing the Couture assignments, and the Couture assignments for the last 2 years have been brutally hard. It's been going up against those top forwards. So I think maybe it's not a role Hurdle's quite ready for, because we've deployed Couture and Marleau and whoever's been on the wing in a lot of defensive situations against a lot of top centers, and it's leaned on them really hard. And maybe Pavelski might be a better candidate to put down the middle for now to absorb some of those tough shifts. Because I think he'll still get his either way. He won't. I think he would score a little less, but if he's stopping scoring, that's equally important. So I like that idea. Actually, it's one I would like to see considered, but I don't think it will. Ian?
Yeah, no, I'm 100%. Again, It's not something that I considered, just because I'm so used to seeing Joe and Pavs just kind of attached at the hip. But the more you think about it, it makes a lot more sense than what they're doing now. Because I like Hurdle, but I think Hurdle is best served on that third line center instead of the top line.
Yeah, and then you put Chris back down on the fourth line. Maybe you put Nieto on the first line. I don't know, but right now he's getting eaten. Hurdle's getting eaten alive trying to play against a person like John Tavares.
Right. Yeah, and that's the only thing I don't know is who do you put on the first line if you move Hurdle back down, and because I think Goldobin's fine, but I don't think if Donskoy comes back, do you really want Goldobin, Thornton, Donskoy? I don't know if that's gonna do much. You might be asking a little much of Thornton there.
Yeah, no, I know, but I think he can handle it. If there's anybody who can, I think it is Thornton. But boy, at this point, I really wish that Carlson was back.
And that would solve a lot.
Yeah, Carlson and Donskoy.
We just need people to stop dropping like flies, because we're getting just ravaged by injuries right now.
Yeah. You think about it. You got Martin, you got Couture, and really we said Martin, Couture, Carlson, and Donskoy, and really we said, that defense takes a hit, and it's going to be bad. And you saw it one game in. I think we're pretty deep in forward, but man, you can't just take 3 regulars out and expect it to go 4 if you count Raffy. I mean, so
that's true.
We always
forget Raffy.
Yeah, so it's like you're asking them to overcome quite a bit. I mean, it was so much so I was thinking like, boy, it'd be nice to have Timo right now. He had 4 assists in the queue tonight.
Yeah.
So I was like, whoa, that'd be nice, but they won't recall him from the CHL, but
they can't.
No, and so it's kind of a pipe dream. But
yeah,
anyhow,
that's a one-way trip, because as long as Halifax is playing, they can't call him now because they send him back down. So
yeah, so it's just like, boy, injuries, man, they're killing us.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be so bad if the goaltending held up its end of the bargain, or at least trying to steal a couple more games, but not with Stalock.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna blame Jones at this point.
Yeah,
Jones
and
has
we're
been
not. We can't
unbelievable.
really expect Jones to keep at the pace he's going. I mean, because
No,
it's been insane. Like tonight, Staylog let in more than double as many goals as Jones has let in the first four, which we know one of these
Yeah.
things is unsustainable, and we know which one, we
right?
know which one of them is definitely unsustainable. They probably both are. No way Staylog keeps on laying in five.
No.
But yeah, Martin Jones, he's like somewhere around 98% right now, I think. And I mean, the best goalies in the league career-wise are right around 92, 93. So he's going
Right.
to fall down to earth at some point, but hopefully he doesn't fall much below that because I think it is quite feasible for him to continue to play well. Just I don't think we're going to be able to expect him to let only one every other game. More like
Right.
if he can stay in the 1 to 2, low 2 range, then we'll be just fine. There's enough scoring on this team to get by if he's only letting in around 2 a night.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so at what point do you start to say, boy, we're going to need another defenseman? um, do we trade for one? I mean, I know we're only game number 5, but
I
you
know,
know,
I know when you say that. You say that 2 years ago. That's when you say that. We've needed more defensemen for a while.
I mean, I know, and I have been on record as saying don't touch the farm because right now it's in a good place, and they have assets. They have, you could call them liquid assets, but I don't want to strip mine at again.
The problem is you'd have to move a roster player because you're sitting at about 400 grand in cap space.
Right.
So you'd have to move a roster player. And then at that point, it's like, by doing that, are you filling one hole and digging another?
Is Torres currently counting against the cap? Do either
He
of you
most
know?
certainly is.
Yes, Torres
Okay.
counts against the cap. He does not count against the roster spot.
Now the question is, at some point, if they want to make a move, does he potentially become a casualty? There's a way to save money.
You're only talking about 1.4 to or 1.2 to 1.4 million.
Yeah.
And if you want a fifth, fourth kind of defenseman, they're going to be at least making 3. So it's going to have to be money in, money out at this point.
Yeah. I mean, I would
Yeah.
say there's a chance he could be part of that transaction.
Yeah, because I don't know how long it takes for Logan to go onto the actual LTIR, as far
I
as the
don't think
cap's concerned.
I don't think he is LTIR though. I think he's just IR.
Yeah, well, I think it's eventually they can move to the LTIR. I mean, he's going to be gone for possibly 6 weeks, so that's a
Yeah,
lot of games.
that is.
If he goes to the LTIR, then that's 6 million in cap space that they could fudge with. But then when they want to bring Logan back, then they gotta, that puts them in another bind altogether.
Yeah, it doesn't quite seem feasible.
No.
So
No,
yeah,
I think it's.
we'll see. I mean, right now we are reacting to this, like, as I already said, the second half of back-to-back on the road against a good team.
That's right.
So we should probably slow our roll a little bit. Yeah, say we're having
Yeah.
this discussion in January. I think there's definitely has more legs, but yeah, we got keep it all in perspective because there have been a lot of positives so far this season, and I think generally I've liked what I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
True. No, and like I said, the only reason why I bring it up is because if Martin is gone for any extended period of time, and like I said, extended period in this case is not very extended. I'm talking like 2 to 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to do something different than what you put out on the ice defensively tonight. I think there's just no way around that.
That's kind of the bed we made though when we didn't go out and sign we didn't sign an NHL seventh defenseman, and that's kind of that's the bed they've made.
Is Scott Hannon still looking for work?
He might be.
What about Mirko? What about bringing up Mirko and playing Mirko with Braun or Mirko and Dylan?
Honestly, I'd like to see him continue to develop more down there because I think
Yeah.
that'd be a good thing for him. But I mean, I don't think it's out of the question if we can continue to see as many issues as we have tonight.
Yeah, I think the fact that he's down in the AHL and DeMello and Tennyson are both up, I think, is really telling of what the organization thinks of Mirko at this point in time. I don't foresee him coming. I think they'd have to get really desperate to bring Mirko up. Honestly, I don't think he's ready. Like, I don't think he's ready to fill in the type of minutes that, because of injuries, that he'd be asked to fill in either.
Well, and also we didn't draft him to be a good uh, 4 through 6 kind of guy. We drafted him in the first round. We're thinking he's
Right.
a top 3 defenseman
Yeah.
kind of guy. So yeah, I tend to agree. Like we're not developing him to just fill in here at times. We're developing him for the long run.
You know what I find interesting too, just kind of looking over the times. Boy, Burns had 5 more minutes than Vlasic. Burns and Dillon had 5 more minutes than Vlasic, and had 8 more minutes than Braun. So I don't know. I don't know if DeBoer is utilizing Vlasic in the right ways, because Vlasic is also on the second unit power play.
I hate that. Todd did the same thing, though.
Yeah, I never understood that. Like the times we'd play Vlasic on the second unit power play over guys who maybe like even like Matt Irwin last year. Like
Right.
Matt Irwin's not a good defender, but he's a hell of a lot better offensive player than Vlasic is. Vlasic is a effective offensive player. Well, mildly effective. I mean, depends on how you define it. But yeah, we tend to. I think it's a lot of looking at star status over what the actual skills are. Like, yes, Vlasic can play good defense, but we don't need good defense on the power play. We need guys who can, move the puck, who can create shots and get shots through from the point.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing Vlasic play about 27, 28 minutes, and if that reduces the Burns-Dillon pairing for a little bit, then that's a good thing. And I think that I think Vlasic and I think Braun can handle that. And then on the second unit power play, I would put Braun and Tennyson together, because they're the most after Burns. I would say that those two are the most next gifted offensively for defensemen.
One thing also to consider when we're talking about minutes distribution, well, two things. First is that I have not looked up the numbers on this, but based on just eyeball observation, I think Vlasic's getting deployed pretty heavily in the defensive zone, while Burns getting deployed pretty heavily in the offensive zone. So those minutes are more taxing, and hopefully we're starting more shifts in the offensive zone as well. So those minutes being taxing, but also, I don't know if you noticed, it took about 7 minutes for us to, I'm blanking on his name right now, for him to make his NHL debut.
DeMello?
DeMello, yes. Yeah, I'm just blanking on his name. But it took about 7 minutes into the game for him to get out there. So I think part of those minutes were also, they were making pretty heavy use of top two pairings to try and reduce the amount of ice time. I assume you have it in front of you, Eric. How many minutes did DeMello play tonight?
DeMello clocked in at about 12:27, so not bad.
Not bad for a third pairing, yeah.
Yeah, so I just felt like I feel like DeBoer has chosen Burns and whoever Burns is paired with as his deploy in any zone kind of set of defensemen, and Braun and Vlasic are exclusively defensive zone pairing defensemen, and I don't like that because, especially on the transition, Burns tends to leave his feet. Burns is a liability behind his own net. 2 goals tonight were scored from behind the net when Burns was there. Burns and Dillon. And I clearly remember on the first goal, Dillon was soft on his man and let him get in front and scored. And then on the Okposo goal, you had Burns let up on his defenseman, on his forward, and he scored. And it drives me nuts to see it, because it's like, guys, this is defense 101. You gotta hit him. You gotta stay with him, and you can't give Kyle Okposo any kind of time in front of the net, especially 5 feet out. Yeah. Not even 5 feet out, 2 feet out.
I know Baker pointed out, and I tend to agree with him, that Stalock could have been a little more aggressive with the stick on that play as well.
Agreed. No, it wasn't. Yeah, I mean, it was a breakdown, a defensive zone breakdown, coupled with a misplay on a goaltender. I mean, and you have any kind of mistake build up like that, you're going to have it in the back of your net in no time. Yeah. So my mini ran over, but
so a quick tweet here from rocket backhander. She said, "I'm a huge Dylan fangirl, and even I, emphasize I, cringed at the Dills Burnsy pairing. All sorts of unfortunate."
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As I said once, though, I don't know if there really is a good pairing with Burns other than what we've seen with Martin so far. It just doesn't seem to be someone who complements him that well.
I thought the Braun Burns pairing last year was decent. I thought that Braun was able to keep up with Burns, and while Braun's not the best in his own zone, I thought that was better than the Dylan pairing that we saw last year as well. And like I said before, you on the defensive side, you can't be paired, you can't be joined at the hip, Vlasic and Braun. You got to be able to mix and match, and even in game, you can break the defensive pairings up in game, and that's something that Todd refused to do. He would always keep them together, even if he saw one of his guys in a pairing sag. He would not break them up during a game, and it really drove me nuts.
Yeah, I mean, I think also Todd, though, subscribed very heavily to the importance of handedness, and
Yes.
he that was part of a big point of emphasis on him. So for him, it was like, I have my right hands, my left hands just the way I like them, and he wouldn't touch that. I think that was part of that, but I don't remember too much of Braun and Burns playing together last year. I think that's, if it was effective, I assume that's probably why it was broken up, because McClellan seemed to occasionally be allergic to combinations of things that work. Like, this is working. I'm going to change it now.
Yeah.
Like, this line scored 2 goals. Well, we're trailing now, so clearly it's that line's fault. So I'm going to break them up and remix my lines. Yeah.
At least it wasn't. At least this game wasn't a effort, like a mismatch in effort, though. I think
that's right.
I think we kind of glossed over it, but that the Sharks did put in a lot. They tried, and there was not, to me, there wasn't a slowdown on the gas. It just that the Islanders blitzed them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think I said before the game, this is probably one of the worst games that they could have lost Martin against, because the Islanders are fast and they're skilled, and that's a game that will tax the hell out of your defense. And when you have your pairings completely messed up by an injury like that, that's gonna cost you a lot.
Thank you again, schedule maker.
Yeah, back-to-backs are gonna happen. I mean, I honestly been complaining for the last week about schedule, mostly because it's like, when was the last game? It's been like 3 days or something.
Yep.
Like I want to watch more hockey. Come on, man.
Yeah, I don't mind this back-to-back, because this back-to-back was New Jersey to Brooklyn. Like, it's not exactly, it's not some of the silly back-to-backs they've gotten in the past.
Not like I mean, take like a 4-hour flight between or something.
Right.
No, not from a location standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. But just from you're gonna put the Islanders on the second leg of a back-to-back, that'd be like, okay, yeah, put the Rangers on the second night of a back-to-back, or put the Blackhawks on the second night of a back-to-back. It's like, okay.
I don't worry. I mean, the schedule maker shouldn't even be thinking about the competitiveness.
No,
I know.
I know what you mean.
Spreadsheet of arena availability, and they have the task of making it all plug in properly. I don't envy them at all.
They're like, okay, how can we jam the most games from the Metro on NHL on NBC? Like, you rearrange them to have more of those games on there. Like, we want this to be the NBC division.
It's not, and I saw NBC post a tweet, and I just had to comment on it. They were like, "Oh, did Stalock mean to take off his mask?" And I was like, "Of course he meant to take off his mask. He got hit in the head with a puck."
And they're like, strap was loose, like the strap was off.
And they don't even mention in the blurb, like, "Oh yeah, he got hit in the head beforehand." They're like, "Oh, he's just trying to take his mask off." And I was like, "Look, even though per rules the scoring chance is still alive, if a guy gets hit in the head with a puck, something's going to be a little wonky there."
Yeah, so people will tell you, like, "Oh, back in the day, goalies didn't even wear masks." Yes, and they weren't, as in good shape as these guys are. They didn't have, super flex composite sticks.
And have you seen Jacques Plante's face?
Yeah.
Well, and back in the day, they also thought smoking was good for you. So, I mean, yes, let's go back to the good old days where we didn't know shit about anything.
Right.
Brilliant.
I'll take my old fashioned, please, with a stogie.
Who needs
Um,
Gatorade? I got a beer over here.
exactly. Or you could always go with the Wayne Gretzky. Was it Diet Pepsi? Isn't that what he drank? Or Diet Coke? No, Diet Coke, I think.
It was Diet Coke. Yeah.
Yeah.
Silly.
He's gonna have one of those at the middle of every period.
Yeah, and that, I mean, to me, that headline, I mean, I assume that was a tweet, right, from
Yeah.
NHL and NBC. That just smacks of those social media engagement shit that those agents tell everyone to do. Like, ask a stupid question so you'll get lots of either stupid answers or people saying, hey, that's a stupid question. Because it doesn't matter the quality of the engagement, people are tweeting at you.
Yeah.
Trust me, no, I used to work with consultants who did that shit, and it's just mind-numbingly stupid. Like, ask stupid questions on social media. People
Like
love
I know NBC Sports is now it used to be Versus and it's rebranded as part of the NBC family. This still feels like second rate Versus to me.
Yeah.
I totally forgot about Versus. It's been so long. That was like, what, 2010 and before, I think?
Yeah, yeah, but it's still like Mickey Mouse, and it's like every time they have Bob McKenzie on, I feel like, oh man, I feel so sorry for you because of the hacks that you're having to work with right now.
No, ESPN technically is Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, you know what I meant though.
Yeah, I know what you mean, no. I mean, to me, I think NHL and NBC has been decent. Like, I think it's been better than Versus, because, I mean, the name Versus to me just smacked of corny channel. Like, I think the branding has been better. But I think in general, most of the hockey coverage that's states-based is not is just subpar by definition. It's not as good.
And then Slushy Jake goes old school. Do you guys remember about OLN? I was like, yeah, I remember OLN.
OLN, yeah.
Those were the bad dark days of hockey. Bad.
So here's some breaking stuff. Kurz just tweeted no update on DeBoer on Ben Smith, who never returned after taking that slap shot in the ear. And what else? There's something else I want to say to you. And in non-Sharks related news, Colorado's Tyson Barrie got suspended for 3 games for that hit on Simon Dupre.
Dude, the Banhammer's going off this year. It was a bad hit, but
that was a bad hit. Yeah.
Yeah, little trigger happy. Yeah, no, I saw that too. No update from DeBoer on Smith. So that sucks.
Unless it's LA, then the Banhammer gets to stay in the box.
Oh, Charlie Siderman says Versus is the kind of channel that shows hot dog eating and arm wrestling. Hashtag Yeah, that'll about do it.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, that pretty well settles it. Although ESPN has a share of poker and other pointless stuff. Actually, doesn't ESPN carry hot dog eating? I could have sworn it did, actually.
Well, they show that Major League Poker or whatever the hell.
Yeah, the World Series of Poker.
World Series of Poker.
Yeah. So I think we're kind of getting towards the end here in terms of topic. So I guess maybe let's just go around final thoughts. Eric, you want to start?
Yeah. No, I mean, effort was there. It was good for a second night of a back-to-back, but boy, let's not have these defensive relapse against the Rangers, because if you thought tonight was bad, it's gonna be worse.
Ian?
Yeah, put away the flammable objects. It's not the end of the world. There's going to be nights like this. As long as they lose games, like, you don't want to ever see your team lose, but as long as they're losing games where, I can say that at least I appreciated the effort, and, the effort's there and the chances are there, they're going to happen. I can deal with this. Don't want to see shades of last year's defense. I'm hoping this Paul Martin thing isn't serious.
Yeah, everybody wish on your lucky star,
Yes,
something.
indeed.
Pray to your deity of choice.
That's right.
Yep. Well, as we already said, it's a long season. There's a lot of hockey yet to be played. A lot of things will play out, and hopefully it'll be more positive. I'm just mostly glad the bad vibes that started last year are no longer over this team. I think they had a hangover last year from the playoff collapse. That which let's not be named. So I think it's good to see the team definitely. I think the vibe is better, which is good, and hopefully that translates to more wins and different results than last year. So that's my final thought. A couple things here before we go. If you like what we do here, please hit the subscribe button down below. Support the channel there. Also, be sure to check out pucknology.net. I believe Ian is posting an article tonight.
I'm going to do my best.
Or there tomorrow morning, perhaps. We shall see. But there's plenty of good content there. Check that out. Anything else here? We would probably be back on Monday after the Rangers game. AJ and Puckeye will probably be here. We'll see. That's kind of TBD. But there's almost definitely will be a show because I think most of us are available. Other than that,
somebody will be running it.
Someone will be here. Someone will be running it. The lights will be on. So I think that wraps it up. Final score 6-3. Sharks fall to the Islanders in a rough one on a back-to-back. Everyone have a good night. Stay safe. Peace the puck out.